Hello. Oh. Okay. Ready? Yep. Hurry up. Good morning. Good morning, Democrats. We need more. Oh, I need more sound. Good morning. Good morning, Democrats, and welcome to our Democratic National Committee meeting and to our summer meeting here in my great state of Minnesota. I hereby call this meeting to order. Now please rise if you are able for the presentation of the colors by the Twin Cities Squadron of the U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Corps. I would like now for all of the members who are veterans to join us on the front here. If the veterans or members who serve in the armed services right now, to please come up and line up in front of the stage to help lead us in the Pledge of the Allegiance. Anyone who served our country in the armed forces, any veterans, please come up here right now. Thank you. Thank you all for your unwavering dedication to protecting our freedoms and to your courageous service. Please now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Members, please join me in welcoming Pastor Jen Rome, who will lead us in our invocation today. Pastor.
So, here you all are. You have shown up as part of the political process, longing for justice and joy for all people in creation. Just showing up means that you are people of hope. Hope for the world to turn on an axis of love. Deep in my spiritual tradition is the love of neighbor, which came from its founding and sibling tradition. Love of neighbor is part of so many expressions of faith and wisdom. Neighbor doesn't just mean the person living in the apartment or the house or the tent next to you. Neighbor means all human beings. We are a nation of neighbors, neighbors to love. Love is often seen as a feeling or an idea, but love is action. When neighbors are oppressed, silenced, or hurt, we must act in love for those neighbors. When our neighbors' needs are not protected or provided for, we must act in love for those neighbors. Being a neighbor is messy and hard. Being a neighbor means admitting to wrong and working for reparation and reconciliation. Being a neighbor both breaks my heart and keeps it beating. For me, being a neighbor is everything. It's what I'm called to be, with all my faults and biases, with all my gifts, and with all my life. I imagine that you will be having complicated conversations and be making difficult decisions. Yet underneath it all is something very simple. You are here to love your neighbors, to take loving action for your neighbors, to move our nation towards love made known in equity, dignity, and compassion for all. So as you gather, wonder, what will you do these next days to care for your neighbors, your states, this nation, the world, and the earth itself? And so, in the presence of what is utterly divine and deeply human, may love be the heart of your work together.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you, Pastor Rome. Now, please welcome a friend of mine from the Minnesota DFL, their treasurer, and her name is Lindy Somick, who is from the Saginaw Ojibwe Nation, and she's going to deliver our land acknowledgement today. Lindy?
Bonjour, Lindy Somick, Nindiginicaz, Amik Saginaw Chippewa Dojaba, Anishinaabe Kwe and Dow. Good morning, DNC members, friends, and relatives. Let's talk about the land for a second. The DNC acknowledges and honors the Dakota Oyate, the Dakota people, who are the original stewards of the lands and waters of Minneapolis. The Dakota cared for the lands, lakes, and the Wapatonka, the Great River, the Mississippi River, for thousands of years before colonization. This land was not claimed or traded. It's a part of a history of broken treaties and promises. And in many ways, we still live in a system built to suppress Indigenous peoples' cultural and spiritual history. As Democrats, I ask of every one of you to not allow land acknowledgements like these to simply be the checking of a box. Be curious, ask questions, ensure our Native neighbors are heard, and work in partnership with your Indigenous communities. Honor the legacy of this land and its people by engaging today with each other with honesty, humility, respect, and compassion. Chimiigwech, and thank you so much.
Thank you, friend. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you, Lindy. I want to really take this moment to thank our DNC Secretary, Jason Ray. You know, he does such amazing work for this party, and it's my honor for our first meeting to turn this microphone over to Secretary Ray for the determination of the quorum.
Well, good morning, Democrats. It is great to see all of you. It looked and sounded like we had a lot of fun last night at the Minnesota State Fair. And as we can see, Democrats have traveled from all 57 states and territories to be here to conduct the important business of the party before us this week. And Mr. Chairman, I'm proud to report that we do indeed have a quorum of members present.
Thank you, Secretary Ray. I'm now going to recognize at microphone 1 over there, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. Just 1 second, Congresswoman. They'll turn the microphone on there. Give it 1 second here. Okay.
Good morning, and good morning, fellow Democrats. Mr. Chairman, I rise in the spirit of making a motion. As most know, I serve in the United States House of Representatives in a family that is divided. So it gives me great pleasure in our family, more than the 435 members of Congress, to move in the spirit of business and movement, that I move that we allow a maximum of 3 members to speak in favor and 3 members to speak against any motion, with members speaking no longer than 2 minutes. We have a 1-minute rule in the House for the duration of our general meeting. And it is simply that everyone can be heard and we get through our motions. That is my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes, Stuart Applebaum on microphone 2.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everybody. As Democrats, we understand the stakes of what is happening in our country. We may not agree on everything, but we Democrats are united in our love for America. We are united in our opposition to those who seek to divide us. And we are united against those Republicans who are breaking faith with everything we respect: the rule of law, the right to organize, the freedom of the press, and the right to vote. And I know that Donald Trump is the biggest union buster in our nation's history. I urge my colleagues to support Congresswoman Beatty's resolution so we can keep our focus on winning the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? It has been John Verdejo? Yes. The question has been called. We will move to an immediate vote on Congresswoman Beatty's motion to set rules for this meeting on debate. All those in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you so much. We will now move to the introduction of our Credentials Committee. Our co-chairs, Ryan Ramirez and Hilda Solis. As you know, they are friends of all of ours. Both Ryan Ramirez and Supervisor Solis have done an amazing job leading this Credentials Committee. Please welcome them and please thank them for their terrific work as they present the Credentials Committee report.
Thank you, sir. Bonjour, Niji. Hello, my friends. Good morning, Democrats. My name is Ryan Ramirez, and I, alongside Hilda Solis, we chair the DNC's Credentials Committee. This is you know, the last Credentials Committee meeting for Hilda. So if we could give her a big round of applause and a thank you. Thank you. That's extremely well-deserved. The only matter of business before the Credentials Committee since our last meeting was the 2024 challenge to the seating of the Alabama's 3 elected DNC members for the 2024-2028 term. The last time we met, the DNC voted to temporarily seat Charlie Statton, Donna Foster, and Joe M. Reed of Alabama for the purpose of participating in the 2025 winter meeting, with the understanding that the state party intended to hold an election to permanently fill the seats at the state committee meeting in April of 2025. On August 14th, the Credentials Committee met to consider the state party's elections held on April 26, 2025. I'll turn it over to co-chair Solis to provide a report on the determination made at our August 14th meeting. Miigwech.
Thank you. Buenos dias. Good morning to everyone. Thank you also, Co-Chair Ramirez, and to our Executive Committee, and also to the Credential Committee members. At our August 14th meeting, after reviewing the party's written submissions and hearing testimony, the Credentials Committee determined that the elections of the 2 DNC members with the closest vote margins were not valid due to concerns about the composition of the electorate and the method of tabulating votes, both of which could have affected the outcomes of the elections. The committee adopted a resolution requiring the Alabama Democratic Party to hold new elections for these 2 seats within 90 days, which would include the following: a process to identify, investigate, and correct all discrepancies in the state committee member list, including membership status and eligibility, a list of vacancies to be filled by the state committee, which must be provided to members at least 14 days before the meeting at which the vacancies will be filled. Notice that it is designed to inform the state committee and the public of all pertinent information concerning the DNC member elections and other aspects of the meeting, including but not limited to the date, the time, the place, and agenda of the meeting. And it must be distributed in a manner designed to ensure that notice reaches all interested parties. The distribution of an up-to-date list of all eligible voting state committee members to all DNC member candidates and at least 14 days before the DNC member elections. The committee woman and the committee chairperson elections must be conducted by a roll call vote conducted by paper ballot with each voter's name and signature on that ballot. And a representative of the challengers must be permitted to observe ballot tabulation, and a representative of the DNC must be permitted to conduct the tabulation. In the meantime, the Credentials Committee recommends that the DNC temporarily seat these 2 members, Donna Foster and Joe M. Reed, for the purposes of the August meeting. With regard to the election of Charlie Statton as committeeman, the committee determined that the irregularities raised by the challengers could not have affected the outcome of an election with a 55-vote margin, and recommends that the DNC permanently seat Mr. Statton at the DNC as a DNC committeeman for Alabama for the period of 2024 through 2028 term. The resolution has been provided to you for reference. With that, Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the report. Thank you.
The report has been moved by the committee. It does not require a second since it is a committee report. At this point, we will move into any discussion on the committee report. Yes, a point of inquiry right there. Delegates over at microphone 1. If we could have the microphone folks just stand in the aisle. There you go. Thank you. Selena Vickers from the great state of West Virginia. Selena?
Thank you, sir. I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
If this resolution fails, It's my understanding that the 3 challenged people would not be seated for this meeting, and that the issue would go to the Credentials Committee for another recommendation. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I would like to speak.
And you're speaking against the committee report, correct, Selena?
Yes. Is this
Yes.
a
Yes,
correct
this is
time
a-
to do that?
Yes, it is, correct.
Okay. Chair Martin, and if somebody could give me a 1 minute, I'll
You have up to
be here
two.
for 2 minutes.
You have up to 2 minutes, and Helen's keeping track, so she'll
Okay.
let me get.
Tell me at 1 minute.
Okay.
All right. Chair Martin, I'm voting no on this resolution. My journey into party politics ran through Alabama. Pretty much everything that I learned about the Democratic Party rules, about fairness and inclusion and diversity, came from attending credential and RBC meetings related to Alabama challenges. For those that don't know, there is a very long history of allegations of unfair elections in the Alabama State Party. There is also a long history of temporarily seating challenge members. On February 1, when we last met, we approved a resolution that condemned the election of the challenge members and instructed a fair election. A fair election was not held, and now we are again considering temporary seating. And I want to point out a few things in our charter and bylaws that we require: an affirmative action program that provides for the representation of certain historically underrepresented groups, and a commitment to full participation, by which all includes
That's
all,
1 minute, but you can keep going.
Thank you. Effective notice of elections. During the civil rights movement, the work of Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer, that's where these rules came from. And we had a policy that was adopted about the 6 elements of an open party. It is our obligation to the people of Alabama to allow them to have a process of fair elections and to build a party that can win elections. And this is no disrespect to anybody at all. I just think it's very important. We owe the people of Alabama to not continue to kick this issue down the road. So I'm voting no on this. I encourage people who have no clue what I'm talking about to abstain. And if this vote is no, if that wins, it'll go to credentials for another option. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. There is one speech against. Are there any speeches in favor? There's a delegate at microphone 1 here, or another speech against is fine. Another speech? Any other speeches or discussion at this point? Delegate, please state your name and your territory and for what purpose you rise.
Joe Reed from Alabama. Joe Reed from Alabama. And I rise and speak to this body as a victim of a Credentials Committee report. And I urge this body to vote against it. Alabama has had some issues in electing individuals, but not because there's some corruption or something like that. We have disgruntled individuals who have been in charge of the party who are no longer in charge of the party. And with their friends and allies, they complain about everything that happens during an election. The Credentials Committee did not find that Alabama bylaws were violated. There was never a factual finding that DNC bylaws were violated. There was a discrepancy of 12 people who should not have been seated. And I think everybody in here can add 12 people. Out of the 12 people that were challenged, 8 were factually debunked as not being able to, for being where they're supposed to be. 8 people were knocked out of that challenge. There were 4 that were left to be questioned. My particular victory was of 25 votes. So even if you add the 12 people that were challenged, 25 votes exceeds that. Anyone can add that. If the election itself is bad and corrupt, then how does Charlie Statton get seated and nobody else does? Okay? If the election is bad, okay? Think that through. If you got an election, 3 races in that election, same criteria, same group, same everything, nothing changes in that election. Charlie Statton wins by 55 votes. he's seated. I win by 25 votes. I'm not seated with only 4 votes questionable. I said questionable now, all right? Not they're invalid, but questionable, okay? There are politics up here that are being played that are quite frankly offensive to people in Alabama, and we're trying to keep a party together. But the division being stoked by people who don't win at the state level and then run to the DNC to get their friends to override what happens.
Time.
The DNC committee is involved in the management of the Alabama Democratic Party, and that's a bridge too far.
Time.
And if they're going to do it for Alabama, they'll do it to anybody here in this room.
Thank
so
you.
I urge everybody to vote no on this one, send it back to the credentials for the new credentials committee to look at this, and we'll deal with it at that level.
Thank you, delegates. Is there any other discussion on the Credentials Committee report? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Yes. Delegate here, if you could come to the aisle. If you want to speak to any resolution or anything from the floor, please come to the aisle, and there'll be a person there with a microphone. The delegate from North Carolina.
Good morning, Matt Hughes from North Carolina. I would join Selena Vickers in urging folks to vote against the resolution today. I believe strongly that how we win elections and govern our party shows how we want to govern America. And when people feel excluded, when the process is imperfect, we must do redos. I believe that that is emphatic, something that is important to the Democratic Party. I believe that it is something that we must hold ourselves accountable to. And I actually agree with most of the resolution, but I think it could use some additional work. And I think that if we're going to talk about election security and other things, and what the Republicans are doing, then we have to be willing to hold ourselves to that same standard. And admit when we are not doing things correctly, because we know the other side does not do that. They would sweep it under the rug and take another look at something else. So those are my comments.
Thank you. We've exhausted all the speeches against. Are there any speeches for the Credentials Committee report? Seeing none, I'll call it 3 times. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. Just a reminder, per our charter, if you are any of the challenged parties to this report, you're not allowed by DNC charters and rules to actually vote on this report. So if you're not named in this credentials report, then you are allowed to vote. At this point, we're going to go to a voice vote. All those in favor of the credentials report as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. Okay. I'm gonna rule that the ayes have it. Okay. Someone called for a division, so what we're going to do, thank you, Howard Chow called for a division. So what we'll do is we'll do a visual division here. I'm going to ask folks to raise their badges, okay? If you are in favor of the credentials report, is to raise your badge, and what we'll do, we will have people count all those in favor. So just go ahead and raise your badge. Yes, point of order is raised. If you have a proxy, what you need to do is raise 2 hands, okay? 2 hands, and we'll be able to determine from there, okay? And then we will call for abstentions at the end. We will count people first in favor. If you have 2 proxies, if you have 1 proxy, I should say, raise both of your hands, and then we will count those. And then we will go to the no votes, and then we will go to the abstentions. Again, if you're in favor of the credentials report as presented, if we could have order, please. Order. Please raise your hand, your badge, and then raise a hand in addition if you have a proxy. Okay. Do we have a... Okay. If all the people who raise their hands for yes could put your badges and hands down, we do have the count there. If you are now opposed, it's the same thing. Raise your badge, and if you have a proxy, go ahead and raise an additional hand. Okay?
But it just means they don't get to, they're not going to get to vote. I mean, well, and the kind of compromise was to let them vote. And if it fails, it just means they're not going to be able to be here. We bent over backwards for them, and so God bless them. Because there were plenty of folks who wanted to, clearly, Alabama's been here enough, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay, if folks could, from the team, could let me know if we have the no votes. Do we have all the no votes? Do we have all the no votes? Team, do we have all the no votes? Can someone give me a... Yes. Okay. Please put your badges down if you're a no vote in your hands. The last thing we'll call for is any abstentions. Any abstentions, raise a badge or a hand if you have a proxy. Raise your... Any abstentions? Okay, do we have all the abstentions? Do we have all the abstentions? Okay, you can put your hands down if we have the abstentions, and just give us a moment for the team to give me the results here. Hey, Sham. Okay. Just give us one moment. Thanks for your patience. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, and thanks for your patience. The results are as follows. Yes votes had 138 and no had 163, so the motion to accept the credentials report has failed. So at this point, this will go back to the Credentials Committee, of course. The three individuals who were mentioned in this will not be seated for the purpose of this meeting, but the Credentials Committee will take this matter up again. I do want to thank the committee and, of course, the co-chairs for their deliberation on this. Please again thank Chair Hilda Solis and Chair Ryan Ramirez for all their work on this. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, Democrats. What a morning it already is, huh? There you go. Well, look, it feels damn good to be back home in my state of Minnesota where the air is crisp, the people are tough, and the cheese curds are always fried to perfection, as you saw last night. So look, it is great to be here with Governor Tim Walz, who you'll hear from in a moment, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and you'll hear from my good friend in a moment, Senator John Hoffman, whose family is still with us today because of the grace of God, the skill of doctors, and of course the bravery of first responders. Senator, thank you. It's so amazing to see you here today. And I'm so glad to have some great Democrats with us this morning, like Chairman Gene Wu, representing those badass Texas Democrats. Yes, yes. We've got Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee, the mayor of Oakland's here with us today. And so many more of our great friends that you'll hear from today. Now look, did you all have fun last night at the fair? All right, good. And how about that Princess K of the Milky Way butter sculpting competition? I don't know if you saw it, but we actually had to alert security that RFK Jr. might try to snag one of the 90-pound blocks of butter for his morning coffee and his side of radioactive shrimp. So it's a little crazy, but look, I know some of us are still full from last night, but I also know that walking around the fairgrounds, you see more than just fried food and butter sculptures. You see America. You see parents who are exhausted but smiling, pushing their babies in strollers. You see 4-H kids proudly standing next to animals they raised with their own hands. You see older couples walking hand in hand, carrying decades of love, heading for their yearly plate of pancakes. This is who we fight for. This is why we became Democrats in the first place. For years, and you've heard me say this, I've kept two rituals every single morning. First, I say the Serenity Prayer, which is about accepting the things I cannot change, having the courage to change the things I can, and having the wisdom to know the difference. A simple reminder that we can't control everything, so we should focus on the things we can, and then we should do something. Do something. And second, I remind myself of something of my first boss said to me, my mentor, Senator Paul Wellstone, who was a friend to many in this room. Paul would say, we can remake the world daily. Think about this. Think about how fortunate we all are in this room. We, every single one of you in this room, get to remake the world daily, to improve people's lives, to make change. That's why we do this. And since I started this job, I've added 2 more rituals. I ask 2 more things to myself every single morning. Whose side are we on? And who are we fighting for? You see, when I saw those faces at the fair, those parents, those kids, those neighbors, the answer was simple. We're on their side. We're fighting for them. But fighting means fighting, not hoping, not waiting, not wishing, but fighting, standing up for what's right. Let me ask you this. If we are not willing to fight like hell for what we believe in, then do we really believe in it at all? Ask yourself that. And let me be very clear, if we won't fight now, then when will we? When will we fight? Because in just 7 months, Donald Trump has dragged our country into chaos. 7 months in, and we have the military on American street corners. 7 months in, and families are being torn apart by masked men in the night. 7 months in, and Trump is openly scheming to rig the midterm map and cling to power, plotting his way towards an unconstitutional third term. This is not politics as usual, my friends. This is authoritarianism. It's fascism dressed in a red tie. And we, each of you in this room, and all the Democrats throughout this country, we are the only thing standing in his way. The only thing. So let's talk about why this fight matters. Because Trump and his allies aren't just dismantling democracy, they're dismantling people's lives. Families are paying more and getting less. Small businesses, the backbone of our economy, are being crushed. Farmers are being driven off their land. The dollar is weaker. Our debt is soaring. Our credit rating has dropped. And what has Donald Trump done for working families who can't afford groceries or pay their rent? Not a damn thing. In fact, he's made life worse for those families. He's wrecked the economy just to give more tax handouts to the richest people in our country. That's not leadership. That's wrong. And from day one, Donald Trump and these weak, spineless Republican rubber stamps who aid and abet him have attacked construction jobs. They've attacked rural hospitals. They've attacked nursing homes. They've jacked up energy prices, grocery prices, clothing prices, you name it. Heck, even the payoffs to get a meeting with the president are skyrocketing. It's crazy. Yet they lie about it every single day. You remember when Donald Trump said foreign countries would eat the tariff costs? Remember that? Nope. We're the ones paying the price. No amount of lying or spinning can convince a family's checking account of something that's not true. You don't make America great by destroying the economy. You don't make America great by turning the military on communities. And you don't make America great by attempting to erase history. Yes, Donald Trump, guess what, buddy? There was slavery in this country. And yes, Donald Trump, slavery was bad. Something we shouldn't have to say in the United States of America. Crazy. Look, a great Minnesotan, Hubert Humphrey, once said that the moral test of government is how we treat those in the dawn of life, our children, those in the twilight of life, our seniors, and those in the shadows of life, the disabled. I want you to think about that. That's our moral test. On every single measure, this callous, immoral, bankrupt, and soulless administration has failed. Democrats, we measure greatness by how many people have health care, how many families can find child care that doesn't break the bank, how many young couples can get keys to their first home, and how many people with amazing ideas can turn those ideas into businesses that prosper. You see, when Democrats are in charge, economies thrive. The facts on this are very crystal clear. And while we see problems and fix them, Republicans invent problems and make everything worse. So let's be clear, Democrats. It's us, not Donald Trump, who wants America to be great for every person. We are the party of the working class. We are the party of the farmer, the auto worker, the laborer, and the small business. We are the party of workers of every race, age, and background. And we are the party that values safe communities over cheap TV theatrics. You see, unlike Donald Trump, we don't use military as a prop for a failing president. We respect our heroes in uniform. We honor their service and sacrifice. And yes, we want to make sure that every veteran can actually afford a home and get the health care after they've served our country. Now look, here's the thing. After 6 months as chair, I've learned that a lot of people, especially folks in D.C., they think they can change things by winning arguments. You know what winning the argument gets you? Maybe a nice round of applause and a few likes on Instagram. But the reality is it doesn't make life any better for any person. We have to stop for settling on winning arguments with each other. We have to win elections. Look, here's the deal. I've said this before, folks. No one should confuse in this big tent Democratic Party of ours. No one should confuse unity with unanimity. We are all, in this big tent party of us, we are all unified towards one single goal: to stop Donald Trump and put this country back on track. Yes, we have differences of opinion. Yes, we're a big tent party. Yes, we don't agree on everything. But that's the beauty of this Democratic Party. We are still unified despite our differences. And folks, and guess what? Our unity is going to lead us to winning elections this fall in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, and Virginia. We're going to elect two incredible leaders in Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill. We're going to re-elect those Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices, and we're going to fight Trump's attempts to rig the midterm elections on his way and on our way to winning back Congress and state houses and attorney general seats and governors and mayors and counties and municipalities across America. Because we know what it takes, because we've already won this year. 38 special elections. We've won in Wisconsin. We've won in Omaha. We've won in Pennsylvania. We've won in Iowa, in Illinois, and here in Minnesota. We've won in San Antonio. We've won in South Carolina, in Mississippi. We've won in Oklahoma and Virginia. We're winning all across this country, including in many places that haven't gone blue in generations. Now, not all of these elections make national news, but I know that every race matters. Every inch of ground that we gain matters. Every single inch. And what have we done this year to gain that ground? 150 town halls and counting across every state and in Republican districts to reach new voters and bring others back into the fold. Fighting fire with fire in Texas with a massive mobilization effort and working alongside brave Texas Democrats who are standing up and squaring up with Greg Abbott and Donald Trump. Investing unprecedented resources earlier than ever before in state parties to win elections on the ballot this year and beyond. And we are holding Republicans' feet to the fire with a state-of-the-art war room, beating these guys at their own game in the online ecosystem and suing the hell out of them when they come after voting rights and fair elections. Now look, through our Organizing Summer program, we've marshaled tens of thousands of volunteers around the country, and we've trained legions of activists. We're establishing a true coordinated campaign across the ballot, and we're planning for the future. The future, instead of just living in the past, adopting emerging and innovative tech and data tools and engaging coalitions. And as I've said before, we need to get the DNC out of D.C. And that's exactly what we've done. That's exactly why I've traveled to 30 states since February. 30 states over the last 6 months. Now look, as I said, let's win the election, folks. I'm not here to win the argument. None of you are. Democrats, make no mistake. A storm is coming. In fact, it's already here. Rising inequality, attacks on democracy, voter suppression, and a fascist regime that doesn't play by the rules. In this moment, complacency is a death sentence. And I know none of you in the room are complacent. We need to fight harder. We need to organize smarter, and we need to make sure that people everywhere, no matter where they live, understand that the Democratic Party is their party. The time to act is now. The time to change is now. The time to win real, lasting, transformative victories is right now. Now look, I refuse to have this DNC be a one-trick, once every 4-year pony only focused on presidential elections. We cannot do that any longer. Today, we're in my state, the state of hockey, the state of Minnesota, And so I feel obliged to share a quote from Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky said, "We've got to skate to where the puck will be, not where the puck is. And sure as hell not where the puck was." We can't wait. We need to build power before this presidential election. The day after the last election was the first day of the 2028 campaign. And at the same time, we are investing in a 10-year majority party vision, a vision to win back government at every level within the next decade. And that's what's different. We can take back our states, our counties, our towns, our legislatures, our courts, our Congress, and yes, our country. Building, working, focusing on creating new majorities every single day. Now look, this Democratic Party is at a watershed moment. We have to be different. We have to innovate. And that's what we're doing. $10 billion. That's how much was spent in 2024. $10 billion just on our side. And yet here we are. No majorities. I get it. People are pissed off. I'm pissed off. And I say if you're not pissed off, then we have a much bigger problem. Right? And sure, look, we can point fingers and cast blame until we're blue in the face. But will that help us win in New Jersey, Virginia, or Pennsylvania? Will that allow us to stop Trump from corrupting the midterms with his redistricting power grab? No way. So again, let's win the election, not the argument. But I want to call us to something right now. I want us to rise above partisanship. Because for years there were values that united us, regardless of ideology, regardless of party. Values that weren't Republican or Democrat, but American values. Values like respect for our Constitution, a belief in the rule of law, a belief in due process and separation of powers, a free and fair press, standing with our allies around the world to protect emerging democracies and so on. These were core values, foundational to who we are as Americans, foundational to our identity around the world, and the one thing, regardless of party, we could all agree upon. But now we have one side led by a dictator-in-chief who's decided to throw these values into the dustbin of history. And when Joe Biden said in 2020 that this fight was about the soul of the nation, this moment right now was what he was talking about. This is not the fight for Democratic Party or the fight for the Republican Party, but a fight for America and the values that are foundational to who we are and who we should be. And right now I call on all of us to fight for a country that's being attacked from the inside, a country being attacked by an insidious force hell-bent on destroying our American experiment. And are you ready to fight? I know Texas is always ready for that, right? Right, Texas? Is California ready for that fight? Greg Abbott and Donald Trump wanted a showdown. Well, hell, we gave them that showdown. Texas Republicans may have passed those rigged maps, but we know Trump isn't stopping there. He's given gerrymandering orders to more red states. He's going after mail-in ballots. And the other day, we had a call with Governor Newsom, Senator Booker, and Texas State Representative Nicole Collier. She refused to be surveilled by the state and was being kept as a political prisoner in the Texas Capitol. That's right, a prisoner. This is a duly elected official in the United States of America being kept as a prisoner in the state capitol. And during that call, by the way, during that call, the Republicans came into the bathroom, the only place that Representative Collier could find privacy to take that call, and they threatened her with the felony if she didn't hang up. This is shameful. This is shameful. Now look, folks, I'm sick and tired of this Democratic Party bringing a pencil to a knife fight. We cannot be the only party that plays by the rules anymore. We've got to stand up and fight. We're not going to have a hand tied behind our back anymore. Let's grow a damn spine and get in this fight, Democrats. LFG, that's right. Americans are hungry for leaders. They're hungry for candidates who are on the side of working people. They're hungry for leaders who give a damn about their circumstances, and they're hungry for a government that gives people freedom, not fascism. To every American who is hungry for that kind of government, I invite you to join us. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, I invite you to join us. Together we will fight with every fiber of our being against Trump and his power-hungry circus. I want to end with a few words about my good friend, Melissa Hortman. Look, Minnesota. Yeah. In the fall of 2023, I've known Melissa for over half my life, by the way. Outside probably Senator Klobuchar, she's one of my closest friends in Minnesota politics. And in the fall of 2023, we spent a lot of time together campaigning for John Kerry. Melissa had once worked in his Senate office, and I was building out his Minnesota team. On one long drive back from Iowa, she turned to me and she asked if she should try again to run a third time for the state house. She had lost twice before that. We waited back and forth. I gave her my advice. She pushed me on it. But she spoke of Paul Wellstone, who I worked for and was my hero and mentor, whom she admired deeply, not just for his politics, but also for his heart. Paul had died 1 year prior to that in that tragic plane crash in northern Minnesota. And I reminded her of something that Paul said. The future does not belong to the cynic or to those who sit on the sidelines. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams and are change makers. Melissa ran again, and she won. She didn't give up, she didn't stop fighting, and she became one of the greatest change makers Minnesota has ever known. Because of Melissa, and with a one-seat majority, Minnesota passed the most pro-family, pro-worker agenda in America. Paid family and medical leave, the biggest child tax credit in history, free school meals, free college tuition, the largest K-12 investment ever, codifying abortion rights, and so much more. None of it, not one piece of this Minnesota miracle would have happened without her. And so if I can leave you with one thing this morning, let it be something that Melissa knew. Power is fleeting. We never know when we'll have it again. So use your power. Use your power when you have it to make the biggest difference you can for as many people as you can. Remember why you got involved in politics in the first place. Stand up and fight like hell for the things you believe in. Democrats, are you ready to fight? Yeah. Are you ready to take back our country from the wannabe king in the White House? Yeah. Are you ready to organize? Are you ready to organize everywhere? Are you ready to use every lever of power to organize for the future we deserve? Remember this, Democrats, when we organize everywhere, we can win anywhere. Say it with me. When we organize everywhere, we win. Let's fight, let's win, and let's remake the world daily, Democrats. Thank you. Now look, thank you for listening to that long speech. I appreciate it. Look, here we go. I am really honored to have a great friend of mine with me today. Gene Wu, who is the chair of the Texas Democratic Caucus, is here with us today. He's a true fighter for the people of Texas. You know, when the fight came to him, he didn't flinch. He didn't back away. He knew immediately what he had to do. I had the privilege of standing shoulder to shoulder with Chair Wu twice over the last month, both in Texas and in Illinois. As Representative Wu and the Texas Democrats led the charge against Donald Trump's gerrymandering. I want to thank him. I want to thank Gene for his leadership. I also want to thank him for igniting a national movement within this party to stand up to Trump's rigged schemes and to defend the rights of American voters. Oftentimes, it takes someone giving us a shot in the arm. And those brave patriots in Texas who did everything they could to stand up to this craven power grab, They deserve our admiration, our respect, and we need to continue on this fight for them. Please welcome my friend, Chairman Gene Wu.
Thank you so much. My name is Gene Wu. I'm a simple state rep from Houston. I represent House District 137, which is the southwest part of Houston, which is a largely immigrant community. And I'm also, just happen to be the minority leader in the Texas House. Last Monday, my friend Nicole Collier looked me straight in the eyes and just said, "I don't want to do this alone. Would you stay with me?" And I was kind of taken aback because we had just gotten through what it was probably one of the most brutal legislative sessions that we've had in a long, long time. We got back from a 2-week quorum break where we left our families, we left our jobs, and we decamped and went to Illinois, went to California, went to New York, went to all over the place. And during that time, oh God, what have they done? They tried to send the FBI after us. They doxed our homes. They sent rogue vigilantes after us. They put DPS troopers in front of our houses. They went after people who were in hospitals. They filed frivolous lawsuit after frivolous lawsuit to try to get us unseated. We had the deal of the rogue sheriff. They were bomb threats. We got kicked out of hotels for the bomb threats, not for other stuff. And we had just come back, and my wife had taken a bus 3 hours up to Austin so that she could pick me up and take me home and see my kids for the first time in a while. And all we had to do was come in, sign this permission slip, and accept a police escort, accept a state police officer to monitor and guard us and watch us and chaperone us 24 hours a day. And I didn't think much of it because I was so tired and I so desperately wanted to see my family. But when Nicole looked me in the eyes and said, "Would you stay with me? I don't think I can do this alone," I could only respond with one answer: yes. And it was hard to do because I had to call my wife then and tell her that she had to get back on the bus and go back to Houston by herself. And that was hard. That was really hard to do, but it was something that was really necessary. And for the next 72 hours, I was no longer minority leader. I wasn't even state rep anymore. I was Nicole Collier's personal assistant, her staffer, her production assistant, her nutritionalist. I thought I was prepared to deal with it because I have 2 young boys, but you do not understand like the concept of chasing after an adult woman, begging her to please drink water. And to remind her, this is the 4th time I've reheated your oatmeal, please eat it. But here's the thing, she did hours and hours and hours of interviews, interview after interview after interview. I mean, like, I was tired just watching her. But what people didn't see was there was a lot of people behind her who helped out, including myself, because staff weren't allowed onto the House floor then. And it just reminded me of my time with Chair Martin. Because that conversation where Nicole looked me in the eyes and asked me to help her, I had that same conversation with Chair Martin. And in fact, I know exactly where I was the moment I made that ask, because I had been dreading this phone call for weeks. But I knew this is something that we had to have if we were to make this successful. We needed the DNC support. We needed Chair Martin's support. And I remember exactly where I was because for whatever reason, I was doing a tour down in South Texas in the RGV, and I was actually standing at the border wall. I was standing at the Texas-Mexico border wall, having this very surreal conversation with the chair of the DNC, talking about how do we save democracy? How do we save our nation? And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of a nervous, awkward person to begin with. And so these conversations, these phone calls never, they're always kind of like, I'm just stammering my way through the call. And so I finally get to my first ask. I'm like, oh, okay, would you do this for us? And he just said, yes, we'll take care of it. I was like, oh, that was easy? And so I said, well, look, here's what our members need. Here's what they're afraid of. Here's what we think will really help. And item after item, Chair Martin just said, yes, 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 right? And that's when I knew it was not just Minnesota nice. That this was somebody who genuinely understood the importance of what we were doing at that moment and what it meant for the rest of the country. That was felt. And throughout the course of our quorum break, in the 2 weeks that we were in Austin, in the time that we came back, Chair Martin, DNC made sure we had over 250,000 text messages go out to members' districts to make sure that their voters knew what they were doing and why it was so important. We had 30,000 volunteers make phone call to persuadable voters to say, see, this is what Democrats do. This is how Democrats are fighting for you to make sure that you are represented and your democracy is protected. He made Chair Martin himself personally convened organizations, convened coalitions of our allies, of our groups that supported us all around the nation to make sure that everyone was on the same page, to make sure we were talking about it in the same way, to make sure that whatever we do, that the messaging to the public was that Democrats were fighting corruption everywhere, right? And most importantly, not only was Chair Martin there, physically on the ground with us before we started, and on the ground with us the moment we were in Illinois, but he helped us coordinate a day of action, something our nation has not seen in a long time. Over 100 major cities in America got together and said no. They said, we have had enough, just like Nicole Collier. We have had enough of this. We are tired of it. We will stand for it no more. And here's the thing. If I and others did not help Nicole Collier be in the background and take care of all those things, would she still have done it? Probably. But would have her impact on our society, would her message have not been as strong, not gotten out there as much, and not spoken to as many people? Yeah, I don't think it would have. Our quorum break, would we have done the quorum break without the help of the DNC, without the help of Chair Martin? We might have. We probably would have. But would we have been able to accomplish all of our goals, including getting California to take the step up, to become the safety net for the country? Right? Would we have gotten New York and Illinois and Maryland to all start talking about this seriously, to take the idea that we have to fight fire with fire seriously? Right? Probably not. And so this is the lesson that I have from all of this. This is my lesson. I know as Democratic leaders, we are all asked right now, at this moment in time, we're being asked by our followers, we're asked by our supporters, we're asked by our donors, we're asked by our advocates, what are you doing? What are you going to do to resist? What are you going to do to stand up? What are you going to do to fight for our nation? And what we have to tell them is we're going to do everything. We're going to do everything that we can, because it doesn't have to just come from us. It can come from others. It can come from places that we were not expecting, like Representative Nicole Collier. But the fact that those acts of resistance exist
also means that we have to be ready to support them. To not say, like, we are not the stars here. We are going to make sure that their message and their story and what they're trying to do is amplified and goes out to the public and sparks the hearts of Americans. That's what we need to do. And that's what we hope we keep doing. Chair Martin, on behalf of the state of Texas, on behalf of House Democrats in Texas, thank you so much for your support to the DNC, to everybody here who supported us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And I'm going to say this. What we are doing is igniting the hearts of Americans to remind them that what makes America great is us. It is Americans who make America great, and we will go back to that. We will go back to America that we believe in, America that works for people who work hard and follow the rules. Democrats are going to fight for Americans.
Thank you, Chair Wu. Next, we're going to hear from a great friend of mine, my brother, another fighter, someone I've always believed in for so many reasons. And let me tell you, of course, you know he's a champion for consumers, for working families, and he is not afraid of taking anyone on that comes after Minnesotans. No matter how powerful they are, our Attorney General will always take them on. Now look, I want to tell you something personal about my friend Keith. He's an organizer. And you know, when he was in Congress, and I shared this speech when I was proud to nominate him when he stood for DNC chair, and boy, he would have been a great chair. I think about that all the time. But let me say this. Now, Keith represented this district right here, Minneapolis, the 5th district, one of the safest Democratic congressional seats in America. Now, he could literally have taken a vacation and still won by 30 votes, 30%. Literally. He didn't have to do the work. But when I became DFL chair, he came up to me and said, look, I want to turn my district from the lowest turnout district to the highest turnout district in the state. And we did that. We did that because Keith said, you know what? I can still win without campaigning, but I know when I campaign, I can help other Democrats, and most importantly, I can help people become a part of their democracy. I can make sure that people are engaged in the conversation. It is always such an honor for me to introduce my brother, my friend, Minnesota's Attorney General, Keith Ellison.
Welcome to the state that Melissa Hortman called home. Welcome to Melissa's home state. You know, it may strike some of you as strange that a Muslim would say, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. But Melissa would not find it strange because she saw our faiths as a bridge between us, not a wall. That was who Melissa was. Melissa, when I met her in 1996, she was a legal aid lawyer. She was a legal aid lawyer, and I was the director of something called the Legal Rights Center. And we both were representing the same person on different things. And the person she was representing was a woman who was a low-income person who had 3 children and was living in an apartment which was in squalor and in bad repair because the landlord was just trying to suck money out of the tenants. And the landlord would even go to the female tenants and say stuff like, you know, girls don't have to pay rent. Well, Melissa sued that landlord. And Melissa got $490,000 judgment off that landlord. And that judgment changed that woman's life. Now, even though a judge came and chopped it in half, Melissa said, look, $250,000, a lot of money. Melissa's a champion, always has been one. And friends, Melissa was persecuted for righteousness' sake. Melissa fed the hungry. What else do you call universal school meals? That ain't rhetoric, that's lunch. Melissa welcomed the stranger. In Minnesota, if you can prove you can safely operate a motor vehicle and you get insurance, you can drive a car. And we don't care. I mean, you're in immigration status, that's the Fed, your business with the feds, ain't got nothing to do with us. She welcomed the stranger. And all of our faiths say, welcome the stranger, feed the hungry. She was one who comforted those in prison. You know, we passed a law that said that if you're out of confinement, you can vote. Whereas before, you had to finish probation and parole before you could vote. Melissa lived a life of service, and it was, in her being a Democrat, friends, was an expression, but her core values were that of a person who stood in awe of all humanity and sought every day to serve it. That's who she was. And that's who we have to be. It's not just about party. It's deeper than that. It is about core service to humanity. And we are not trying to just win the next election. We're trying to save a nation. I know a lot of people might think that Joe Biden was sort of overhyping things when he said democracy was at risk. How's that going for you? I mean, he was right then, and you were right to support him, and you were right to support Kamala. One of the things that your Trump administration just did not too long ago is said that a federal program that sends money to farmers to supply food to schools and to food shelves, and to the farmer sends food to schools and food shelves. He's cut that program. Some of those people who voted for him suffer because of his cuts. Some business people now are seeing the prices so erratic because of his behavior. Do not shame them. I told you so is no way to save a nation, friends. Even though it's true. But when we go out there, I don't want you to wag a finger. I want you to build and join a friend. We got to be in the mode of welcoming our friends back to this party. And friends, do not let anybody say, why doesn't somebody do something? Nobody's doing anything. Who's heard someone say something like that? This is not true. And I need you to have a list to tick it off. Wait a minute. Have we already forgotten Cory Booker being on the Senate floor, setting records, filibustering? Have we already forgot that old Mike Johnson had to let Congress go early because he was so scared that the Dems were going to make him deal with Epstein? We forgot that already? Have we already forgot the massive numbers of people who showed up on No King's Day? The massive numbers of people. And the Democratic Party was right there with everybody else leading the way. Have we forgotten about our Texas Dems standing up so bold, so brave, so powerful? And even us Democratic AGs have sued this dude 44 times. And we'll sue him 44 more and 44 more after that. And we have sued him for gender affirming care. Yes, we are not going to scapegoat our transgender community. And we have sued him to stand up for medical research, National Institute of Health, and we have sued them for birthright citizenship, and we have sued him to protect our environment, and we will sue him every day and all the time, and we will be unrelenting, and I want you to know that. And I tell my friends, we're not going to win this battle only in a courtroom. It will be at the ballot box. It will be on the streets. It will be in the courts. It will be in the playhouses and in the movie theaters as our artists create culture to help inspire the people. We have to be multi-talented in defeating fascism, friends. We got to use every single tool available to us and got to welcome new friends and old. And we got to remember that for the last 50 years, wages have not been keeping up with prices. And for the last 30, 40 years, oligarchs have been enriching their wealth. And this big, ugly bill is a bill where if you are the top 10th of 1%, you're going to get a $250,000 tax cut, all paid for by the poorest of the poor. If you make $15,000, you're going to have a tax increase. And this is what this dude is doing. He's literally subsidizing the wealthiest of the wealthy at the expense of everyone else. And we cannot stand for it. We are the best hope for the American people, and we've got to act like it. So let's get out there and fight and win. The thing is ours.
You know, last evening, for those of you who are out at the State Fair, you got to hear from my senior senator. You know, I think you all know, I talked about this on the campaign, that over the 14 years that I led the Minnesota DFL, we didn't lose a single statewide election. And while there's lots of course, in victories have 1,000 parents, right, and defeat is an orphan, right? Sure, the party played a role, but the quarterback of our team for all those years was my senior senator, Amy Klobuchar. Every single year she's not on the ballot, she's one of the biggest donors to the DFL. She invests her time, her money, her persona, her political capital to help Democrats up and down the ballot. She's a true partner of mine. I used to get in trouble when Al Franken was a senator because I'd say that Amy Klobuchar was actually our funniest U.S. senator. So she is, actually. But more important than that, she believes in this party. There's no one who fights harder for her, for our state and for our party than she does. There's no one that has contributed more to our success and, frankly, to my success than Amy. I'm so grateful to call her a friend. I'm grateful to bring her back up to this stage to address this esteemed body. Please welcome my senior senator and great friend, Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ken. It's great to be here this morning. Are you tired of speeches? No, there's so many more. By the way, how about our incredible leader, Keith Ellison, who shows us, as do all the Democratic AGs across the country, that we can fight this in the courts and win, but we've also got to fight it in the Congress and with our constituents by our side. You are going to hear from our great governor, Tim Walz, who you're a little bit familiar with. And you'll meet State Senator John Hoffman, who, with his wife Yvette, their daughter Hope, survived that horrific night of a massacre. And today we talk about Melissa and Mark and the loss, but we also remember those that lived. So Democrats, are you ready to get to work? Are you ready to win? Because I sure am. Are you ready to fight this power grab in places like Texas, where Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, and Ken Paxton and these rubber stamp Republicans are trying to stop voters from voting? And we want to thank Gene Wu for his incredible remarks and for coming here today. So today we tell the country that we stand with Gene Wu and we will fight Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton in the courts. And what do they say in Texas with their no cattle, right? Big hat, no cattle approach to democracy. When the people aren't with you, what do they do? They try to win by brute force. You know, in the old days, if a party was having trouble, if their agenda was out of sync, if their candidates were bad, you would change those candidates. You would change that agenda. But these guys, they're just trying to change the voters. And we are not going to just stand and let it happen. I lead the Freedom to Vote Act in the United States Senate. And I saw how close we were, 2 Democrats short. Those 2 states remember this. 2 Democrats short of passing that bill into law, which would have banned partisan gerrymandering. And the court said that we can do that. So while we wait to get this in place and put some national rules of the road in place, we will, as so many of our leaders have told you, we will not back down. We are going to stand with Governor Newsom and the state of California in taking this on, because we will not let them set the playing field. So I'm ready to fight for democracy. I'm ready to fight for those voters in Virginia and in New Jersey. And I'm excited to add those 2 incredible women governors into those states with Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger. 71 days until those victories. And as Ken has probably told you, we have already overperformed for all of those doubters out there in 36 of the 37 races where Democrats have been on the ballot. We have overperformed or won in those races. So I am not, I will declare this, part of the We Suck caucus, okay? I am just tired of this because we have a job to do. And I want to thank Ken for bringing us to Minnesota, for bringing us to the Minnesota State Fair, where you can actually take a tour, as I'm sure many of you did, of the Princess K of the Milky Way butter carving, of the crop art, of the Machinery Hill, of the Pet Pavilion. So think of all those places you can bring your kids. But meanwhile, back in Washington, Donald Trump has literally shut down the White House for tours of school kids so he can build a ballroom. So, you know, we are all worried because he keeps putting out there that he's going to unconstitutionally run in 2028. But now we know what he's really going to do in his retirement. He is paving the way for his debut on Dancing with the Stars. That is his plan. He's going to be salsaing out the door with RFK Jr. and foxtrotting out with Pete Hegseth. I know it's a bad image, but I thought. So, as Ken noted, he was my party chair. We won all these elections. When we first came in, we had Norm Coleman as the other senator, we had a Republican governor, and we had a delegation that included, well, Michelle Bachmann. But we set our expectations high, election after election after election. And it's time for us to do that across the country. And we have to make the case plain and simple on bread and butter, that Donald Trump is hurting us, that he is hurting people from Oregon to Kentucky, that he is hurting people in red, purple, and blue states. We must make the case, and I know a little bit about this because a whole bunch of people in my state voted for me and Donald Trump. And they voted for him because they believed that he'd bring down costs. Well, Democrats, costs are up, chaos is up, and corruption is up. And he has broken his promises to the people of this country. And it is not the rich who are paying the price. The price is being paid by families. And we got to steer right into this economic message. $2,400 extra coming out of their pockets every year because of this Trump tariff tax. $300 of that in higher food prices. It's being paid by 16 million people who are set to lose their health care because of the big, beautiful betrayal of a budget bill. It is being paid by grandmas in nursing homes right now. the hundreds of rural hospitals that have either closed or at risk of closing, the $3.4 trillion in new debt that is going to be on the shoulders of your kids and your grandkids, the millions who will lose access to food, the millions whose home energy bills are skyrocketing as we see electricity prices go up, all the tax cuts to his buddy, to the wealthiest few. Listen to these numbers. 50% of kids in this country are covered by Medicaid or CHIP. 40% of all births are covered by Medicaid, even higher in rural communities. Over 60% of nursing home residents are covered by Medicaid. And do you know what percentage of Americans are billionaires? Anyone want to guess? It is 0.00024. That's who gets the benefits of this bill. So nearly everyone gets a raw deal out of this bill, except those 0.000 percenters. Who gets a raw deal? Beth Beneke, an Army veteran, mom, and owner of Busy Baby in southern Minnesota. She started a successful small business selling products for high chairs. She was Minnesota Business Person of the Year. She came to Washington, got honored by the Small Business Administration a few months ago, and then had to come over and do a press conference with us and Senator Schumer and our other leaders about what was happening because she's getting decimated. She is roadkill to these tariffs. Or the UCLA cancer researcher on the verge of innovative and critical breakthroughs whose NIH grant was pulled. Or the UP Michigan hotel manager whose bookings were canceled this summer because people can't justify taking a vacation, or because so many of our friends in Canada are pissed about being called the 51st state and won't even cross the border anymore. Or the farmer in New Mexico relied on immigrant workers who are too afraid to do it anymore. And we have a message to Donald Trump. Immigrants don't diminish America, they are America. The president, he doesn't seem to get that his decisions have a devastating ripple effect. Or maybe he just doesn't care when people get hurt by them. That's why we must stop these rubber stamping Republicans. No one likes weak people in Washington, right? No one wants that right now. Even if they voted for him, they want someone that's going to stand up and call them on it and look out for their own state. And that's why when you go home from these meetings and you leave our great state fair, I want you to remember that we got to organize. And especially you in the red and the purple states know we need to organize. Democrats, yeah. But we also have to organize independents and moderate Republicans who in the past have stood up for democracy, depending on the election. Thank you, one person. They have stood up. Yeah. They have stood up state by state and precinct by precinct. Because week after week, day after day, and this is what they get, what regular people get, people that come up to me at the state fair at my booth, they get that this administration is whipping up these unnecessary crises to distract from the real world, to distract from their high rent, to distract from that they don't have enough housing, to distract from that they don't have enough child care. He's upturning the economy. He's targeting people. And week after week, we get a new spin cycle of fallout. And so what does he do? He blames other people, right? This is why that Fox News poll, one of my favorite ones that came out, showing him way underwater and handling the economy. I don't know if you knew what he did on Truth Social after that. He put a post out and he blamed Fox News. He said Fox News is corrupt and that's why MAGA hates them, except their anchors are great. That's what he did. So he blames them. He blames the statisticians for his bad job numbers. Remember that? In fact, he fired the woman who had the audacity to tell the truth and then blamed her for getting the facts straight. I mean, the irony when your response to a bad jobs report is to fire somebody, but that's what he did. He blames immigrants for his dismantling of due process and our Constitution. He blames mail-in ballots for his inevitable midterm election losses. He even blamed Democrats for the Epstein files, which, as I noted, is like the CEO who got caught on camera blaming Coldplay. Trump's blast radius. blast radius. It is affecting all of us. But we're not joining that We Suck club. We're not getting sucked into it when they try to divide us on every single issue online, because we have a more important job to do. Complaining about each other to each other, it's not how we win again. It sure doesn't help the families who are getting torched in his economy. It sure isn't going to help the union workers who are thrown out of the jobs that they are devoting themselves to, working to help people for years. It's not going to help the union workers who are getting thrown out of hospitals because the hospitals have to close down or curtail their services. It's not going to help the union workers who are out there affected by those tariffs. Because when unions are strong, our economy is strong. And when our economy is strong, America is strong. And if anyone, looking at Pennsylvania over there, if anyone knows a little bit about unions, if anyone's still wondering what's at stake this year, let me tell you. You all know the House of Representatives is well within reach. You know the job that Hakeem Jeffries is doing, recruiting the right candidates, getting people in place. But no one, and I mean no one, should write off the U.S. Senate. We surprised the nation, took it back. Some of you remember this. A while back, we did it back then by winning states that no one thought we had a chance to win in. Back then it was Virginia, Missouri, Montana, right? So here's the numbers, and I want you to think about this, because you know these states are within reach, and you know which you are. A lot of it has to do with the gut punch that we're experiencing in rural America, right? So if Democrats, think of this for inspiration, had 5 more votes than the U.S. Senate, Pam Bondi would not be Attorney General today. That's the stakes. If Democrats had 4 more votes in the U.S. Senate, we would have saved the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and its mission to protect Americans from shady, shady companies. If we had 3 more votes in the U.S. Senate, we would have kept the Corporation for Public Broadcasting alive. 3 more votes. And we would have funded the PACT Act to make sure that our veterans get the help they need, what they need, and even block the tax cuts for billionaires. 3 more votes. And by the way, if we had 3 more votes, RFK Jr. wouldn't be in charge of Americans' health, and Tulsi Gabbard would not be the Director of National Intelligence. If we had 2 more votes, and you know that's in reach, you know that's in reach Ohio with Sherrod Brown running. You know that that is in reach North Carolina with Cooper running. Did you put them in the front for a reason there? Okay. If we had 2 more votes, just 2 more votes, we could have kept Doge out of Social Security, saved the program that keeps our farmers in business and feed the world. And yes, Kash Patel would not be director of the FBI. 2 more votes in the U.S. Senate. And if we had 1 more vote, 1 single vote in the Senate, we would have stopped the across-the-board tariffs. We would have kept the ACA premium tax credit in place, which we're going to try to do again. Don't worry about that. Pete Hegseth would not have his job, and that one big, beautiful betrayal of a bill would not have existed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is your countdown to this election. And if we do it, if we win the House and the Senate, when we get the keys to the car to at least stop this guy and at least be a force like we're supposed to be in the Congress and do our jobs, and you know the states where we can do this, what does that mean? Well, it means that Donald Trump can no longer run the tables on voting rights. It means he can no longer run the tables and gut punch rural America. It means he can no longer run the tables on what? The Supreme Court. That is what this means. That is what is at stake. 71 days till New Jersey and Virginia and the rest of the local elections. I know I was just down in Arapahoe County, Colorado. Where are you? Oh, how fun was that? Those local elections out there, watch for it. Littleton, Aurora, I could go on. We have local elections all over the country coming up. 434 days until the midterm election. So let's win those governor's races. Let's take back the Senate. Let's take back the House and show Donald Trump what Democrats actually stand for. That we stand for the people of this country. And if you need inspiration and you're just going to hear about her, think you have someone in your own life. I always think now about Melissa every single day. You heard about what she did. Ken went through it. School lunch, voting rights, paid family leave, reproductive rights, affordable energy. But for me, I started campaigning with her when we both had little kids. And she would go door to door, and she knew every single house. She'd go, that house has a mean dog. You don't want to go there. That's how she did it. She did it the right way. She did it the Paul Wellstone way. She was a Girl Scout leader. She was a Sunday school teacher. And somehow, for those of you in the legislatures, that made her balance things really well when she got to the legislature. And it allowed her to build coalitions and become the Speaker of the House. So when we lost her and Mark, her kids, incredible, Sophie and Colin, they had the presence of mind because they were grounded in the values of that family. Just within a few days to tell the world this, they said, the best way to honor our parents' memory is to do something, whether big or small, to make our community just a little better for someone else. They gave ideas, pet a dog, preferably a golden retriever, they said. Plant a tree, tell a cheesy dad joke, stand up for what you believe in, especially if that is justice or peace. And in our quietest moments, DNC, when things seem bleak, when everyone's pointing fingers, I want you to think about that inspiration of doing things big or small. It can be small. One more volunteer, one more door knocking shift, getting people to stay on a little more. It can be a little bigger, recruiting the best candidate you can get, right, for running an election. And then it can be really big, flipping a congressional seat, flipping a U.S. Senate seat. But to believe it, you have to keep that inspiration alive. That's the message that Sophie and Colin left us with. That's the legacy we carry on in this room. So carry on this torch, go out of here and win, and go out of here as the Democrats, fighters, positive people that we are, as a force for good for this country. Let's get it done.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. As always, we have a few more speakers, but I'm so honored that our next speaker is joining us today. Some of you heard from him yesterday briefly at the State Fair before he went over to see the Indigo Girls, so he's got his priorities right. But let me tell you, I'm sure the governor will talk about this, but you know, one of the first calls, if not the very first call that he made after Vice President Harris put him on the ticket was to Melissa Hortman, to thank her for being a partner, thank her for standing up and fighting with him to do good in this state. You see, what I'm so blessed by here in Minnesota is that we have servant leaders, people like Melissa, of course, but also people like Tim Walz, who are in it for the right reason, don't care about the credit, don't care about getting thanked, just care about rolling up their sleeves, doing the work, and getting shit done for people. Truly, truly. I'm so blessed. I feel blessed. I miss this state so much. I look at Richard all the time, and I'm like, damn, Richard, you got it good here. You do. We're so lucky and fortunate here to have such great elected officials who partner with us in all of our work, and it's my honor to introduce my friend, my governor, Tim Walz.
Wow, good morning. I could see the regret in all your eyes when you missed my rendition of Closer to Fine. So, surrounded by 15,000 of our friends. Well, it's great to see you, Ken. It's good to have you back home again. And welcome to the North Star State. Welcome to the land of 10,000 lakes, home of the invention of the pacemaker, the Post-it note, and then on the weekend we invented water skiing because we had nothing else to do. Home of Mondale and Humphrey and Wellstone and Klobuchar and Hortman and so many others who drive every day, strive to make this state better, each day a little bit better. And I have to tell you, I'm feeling it in this space. I think for all of you, our state experienced incredible trauma this summer with the murder of Melissa and Mark, the shooting of John Yvette, the heroism of the Hoffman's daughter Hope, and so many stories that came out of it. The last time I was in this space was that night, which so many of us were here with Melissa, and we celebrated the Humphrey Mondale dinner, and we celebrated our accomplishments, and we looked to the future. And then shortly in the early morning hours, the tragedy came. A politically motivated assassination that the current president of the United States doesn't think it's worth his time to acknowledge, and a rhetoric from his followers that continues to perpetuate the climate that leads to these types of things. So I know we gather here in Minnesota. We have not moved on from it. It is not a new news cycle for us that we are forever changed by it, but we're a hardy people. We endure cold winters, normally hot summers, and we've seen these things happen. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that legacy that Melissa Hortman leaves was one about improving lives, as Ken said. It was about servant leadership. And today, part of our big debate in Minnesota, when you start school, it's considered sacrilegious to start school before the state fair is over. But some of our educators said it's good to start school and get them back in the classroom. So a lot of our kids are back in school today. And every single one of them who walked through the doors is eating free breakfast and free lunch every day. Every day. And every one of them had access to universal pre-K. Their families had access to the most generous child tax credit in the nation of the 50 states. Our teachers are the best qualified, and we invested historic amounts into public education. And by the way, come this January 1st, we will have the most generous paid family medical leave in the country for all those families. And don't forget, after we get past Labor Day, we can start school, but I just want to be very clear about this. Minnesota always has been and always will be a union state. We're union proud. And I am proud of this state like so many others, and I will have to tell you, the privilege of my lifetime was stand beside someone we know was the most qualified and would have been a fantastic president in a President Harris. And look, we wouldn't wake up every day to a bunch of shit on TV and a bunch of nonsense. We would wake up to an adult with compassion and dignity and vision and leadership doing the work. Not a man-child crying about whatever's wrong with him. May his fat ankles find something today. Petty as hell. But look, I think for each and every one of you, I know you got a busy day ahead of you. I'm grateful for the work you do. I'm grateful for the focus, and my friend Ken, I've said this to you. The party in Minnesota, the DFL party, made it possible for a high school teacher with no money, no political experience to win a challenging congressional district. And I know this, candidates have a small piece of it. It's that infrastructure that surrounds them that makes that possible. And you're focusing on building the infrastructure in your states. And I want to be clear. If those who say, oh, our state is too hard to win a Senate race, or it's too hard to win a congressional race or whatever, I'm talking about the important races we need to organize to win, like school board races that we need to win, city council races, mayors. So the DNC has a responsibility at the top of the ticket, and I think we know these elections have consequences. We know there would be a very different timeline, but it's not for the lack of the effort of everybody in this room. We just have to make the case to them that the alternative and what we provide, the quality of life, the enhancements, the ability to form a union or send your child to school safely, the ability to have thriving economies that work for everyone, not just that 0.00024 that Senator Klobuchar was talking about, they'll do just fine. They will be fine without our help. Trust me on that. But the focus that we have to make, and I know this is it, we cannot allow, and I was glad to hear Senator Klobuchar say this and all of you, we're proud to be a diverse party. We are proud of the diversity of this country. We're not shying away from diversity as a strength and equity as a goal and inclusion being the air we breathe. That's what we should be doing. But what we have to be clear about is don't take the bait. It boggles my damn mind that in the midst of a military takeover of our cities and the attempt to go into others, the flaunting of the rule of law, the cruelness and the unconstitutional nature of the way they're attacking our neighbors, that the press finds the need to talk about, oh, there's a division in the Democratic Party. There's a division in my damn house and we're still married and things are good. That's life. That's life. We are strong. We are strong because we challenge each other. We are strong because we're held accountable. We're strong because we believe that there's a place for everyone here. Think of how easy it would be to be a damn Republican. Oh, what should I wear today? This stupid freaking red hat. What should I say today? I don't know. Just make sure it's cruel. Who do we listen to? That guy. Oh, the felon in the White House? Yeah, listen to him and that will be fine. Now he's talking about burning flags. He's going to have flag burning or whatever. Because he knows there's a hell of a lot of flags with his picture on it that are going to get burned. There's a whole lot of that kind of crap that people are sick of. And I have to tell you, we can have our internal decision-making, our internal healthy debates, but I refuse to believe we do not have the luxury to fight amongst ourselves while that thing sits in the White House. So, I'm not telling anyone not to raise their voice. I'm not telling anyone to say, you are too damn old, man, look at you. I'm fine with that. We can figure that part out. But I am willing to say each and every one of us are unified around the idea that this cruelty must end. This slow-rolling attempt at undermining democracy, and I always get in trouble for it, and I'll continue to say it. I don't think we do any favors when we don't name it. These are fascist policies meant to take away ours. That is what they are. So for all of you here, I welcome you to Minnesota. I'm grateful you're here. We know this is going to be, look, if democracy was easy, everyone would do it. And if democracy were easy, it would survive. But the natural order of things is to have people come along like this guy and to have folks want to be told what to do or to demonize someone else or find a scapegoat. That's kind of the way the natural order is, but we've risen above that. This is not the law of the jungle. This is the law of human decency, of human rights reigning first. And I will have to tell you, I saw a statistic came out today is Minnesota ranks the highest per capita for being a safe haven for transgender individuals in Minnesota. And can I just say, we can talk about economic growth and feeding children and growing the economy and creating jobs simultaneously with talking about everybody's human rights matters, and we shouldn't be demonizing that. You can do both. You can do both. So, this state's also the home to a few pretty good poets, like Prince and Bob Dylan, who told us we would always provide, and Minnesota always will provide, shelter from the storm. But I also want to quote to the New Jersey folks here. They also got a pretty good poet. Today marks the 50th anniversary of the release of Born to Run. And as that poet said, it ain't no sin to be alive, and I think we're here. This room's born to run, running to a better future, a future that includes everyone, a future where our children are valued and lifted up, a future where immigrants are celebrated just like our grandparents and parents were, a future where we ask people to pay their fair share while we make life a little bit easier for others, and we find joy in the things that you find personally joyful, and I don't give a damn what your neighbor thinks about those things. Those are the things that we are here for. So to each of you, it's a privilege to be in this fight with you. It's a privilege to know that they are going to write about this time period. When he is pushed to the dustbin of history, when people use it as a cautionary tale to scare the shit out of their children of what could happen, this guy's out there. Those will be stories for the future. Our time right now is one foot in front of the other. Do the work that's in front of us. Win those 2 gubernatorial elections that are coming up here. We know we need Virginia and New Jersey. Get those won. Prepare for the midterms, 36 governor's races. Continue to push back every single day on this. Do not allow them to normalize federal troops in our cities. It is un-American and unconstitutional. So DNC, go lead the fight. Thank you, guys.
Look, I want to take some time now. Folks, it's really important if I could get everyone's attention, please. In the early hours of June 14th, the state of Minnesota, and yes, the entire country, experienced a loss beyond description. That morning, our good friends Melissa and Mark Hortman, as well as their beloved golden retriever Gilbert, were assassinated by a madman with a violent political agenda. 2 of our other close friends, John and Yvette Hoffman, were shot several times, targeted, and yet, thankfully, are still with us here today. And for that, we thank God. We thank law enforcement, we thank first responders, and we thank all the doctors, nurses, and medical professionals. Now, since June 14th, we have prayed. We prayed for the Hortman family, for the souls of Melissa and Mark and Gilbert, for Sophie and Colin, their children. We have prayed for the Hoffman family and for their full recovery. We have prayed to stop this violence. We prayed for justice. We prayed for our own loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, our families, and yes, our leaders. And like all of you, my wife, Jen, and I are still reckoning with what happened. Melissa Hortman was one of the most consequential legislators in our state's history. And as amazing of a leader as she was an even better person. A mom, a friend, as you heard, a Sunday school teacher, a daughter of the working class. Melissa had so much fire in her. She led with clarity and courage. She refused to waste 1 second, not one. And because she refused to waste time, and as you've heard today from so many of us, millions of Minnesotans are better off today. She accomplished so much for the people of this state. We are so indebted to her. We lost a giant, a friend, a fighter, a quiet revolutionary who led with brilliance and humility, with grace and grit. The kind of leader who doesn't come around very often, and certainly one who can never, ever be replaced. There's an old saying, as some of you have heard, that if you change one life, you change the world. Melissa Hortman didn't just change one life. She changed an entire state. And in doing so, she changed history. Look, her, I shouldn't say this in front of folks, but her mantra to the Legislative Caucus was LFG. When we won back the trifecta, their first trifecta in 10 years, we won back in 2022. She didn't sit on power. We had a 1-seat majority. 1 seat. Instead of playing it safe, instead of being cautious, instead of putting a finger in the wind, worrying what in the hell would happen if they led, seeing every decision through the lens of how you get reelected, Melissa said, LFG, let's fucking go. That's what she said. LFG. LFG. Let's fucking go. So, that's right. So, it's with a great honor that I bring up some speakers to talk about Melissa. And the first I want to recognize is a great friend of mine as well, State Representative Zach Stevenson, who Melissa hired as her campaign manager in 2004. The race she won to actually get elected for the first time to the Minnesota House of Representatives. He's a great leader in the state house, and probably no one in this state who is closer to Melissa Hortman than State Representative Zach Stevenson. Zach, come on up.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to remember my friend and mentor, Melissa Hortman. I'm glad to tell you a little bit about the person, the exceptional person that Melissa was. I first met Melissa Hortman in the spring of 2002 at DFL precinct caucuses. I was 17 years old. I was a senior in high school. I was interested in campaign politics. This was Melissa's second campaign for the Minnesota House. She had run in 1998 and lost, and she would go on to lose again in 2002. And it's something that people need to understand Melissa, is that she lost twice before winning on the third attempt. It shaped her view of holding elective office, that it was a fragile thing, an opportunity to be cherished, something you had to make the most of. But it also tells you a lot about her character. Many people would have given up after the first time, and most would have given up after the second. But not Melissa. She picked herself up off the mat, had a margarita, she really liked tequila, and she got right back to work. But what I really remember about that 2002 race was it was all Melissa Hortman. She was doing everything herself. She was a working attorney, a young mom running for an open seat in the legislature, and she did all the fundraising, all the field, all the planning for the mail, tracked every detail, made sure everything was just the way she wanted. 20 years later, I had the opportunity to watch her serve as Speaker of the House for 6 years, and let me tell you, she was still making sure that everything was going just the way she wanted. In 2004, I was her campaign manager, as Ken said, and she won that race by 402 votes out of 21,000 votes cast. That was the year that George Bush was reelected president, of course, and Melissa defeated an incumbent in a district that voted for George Bush, a pretty impressive accomplishment. I want to give you some insight into who Melissa was by telling you just a second about her lawn signs. In that race, she was running against an incumbent. 2004 was a rematch of the 2002 race that she lost. And the message was that the incumbent wasn't getting anything done. So we put right on the top of the lawn signs, it's time to get the job done. She won that race, but she wasn't a big fan of those lawn signs in 2006 when she was running for re-election, because now she was the incumbent, and she was worried that people would think the job wasn't getting done. But rather than buying new lawn signs, Melissa just cut the top off of all of her old lawn signs. She was a practical person who abhorred waste. When she was Speaker, she would walk around in campaign season with a list, a door-knocking report, a weekly door-knocking report, would show how many doors each campaign had knocked every week and each candidate. And she was particular about the way that the report had to be formatted. In fact, the person who door-knocked the most had to be on the top of the list going in descending order. And she'd walk around with that list and she'd show it to people and say, this is a list of the people that I like in the order that I like them. Melissa was a big believer of the importance in loyalty in politics. You could have no better ally, no truer friend. She was always too generous in giving other people credit for her accomplishments. She would introduce me. She'd say, this is Zach. He's the only reason I'm in the legislature. I wish I had corrected her more often. Over the years, we talked frequently about her running for some other office. She almost ran for Congress in 2008, but didn't want to be away from her children. In recent years, I and many other people tried to convince her to run for governor after Governor Walz was done. She wasn't lacking in ambition, but she had a pretty practical view of it all. One time, when I repeated that I thought she should run for governor, she said, "Zach, why would I do that? I already run the state and I get 6 months off every year." She could also be so self-deprecating. Many of us were worried that she would retire from the legislature. She'd say, I have no other skills. I think I'll just stay here. What bullshit. She was so talented, so skilled. She has a list of legislative accomplishments a mile long. Even before she was elected Speaker, she passed the first community solar standard in Minnesota, created the community solar program, led the charge, and successfully overrode a Republican governor's veto of a gas tax increase, getting 6 Republicans to vote to increase taxes, if you can believe that. She increased funding for a school district and finished a key highway that served her community. And then she was elected Speaker of the House. In the first 4 years, we had divided government, but we still got so much done. Comprehensive opioid response, the nation's toughest wage theft law, an emergency insulin program, the state's largest ever infrastructure bill. But she wasn't satisfied. I can remember in the summer of 2022 her telling me, "I just wish we had a trifecta. Then people could really see what I can do." Boy, did we ever. The 2023 session, of course, will be remembered as her masterpiece, the pinnacle of a long and storied legislative career. Paid family medical leave, earned sick and safe time, enshrining reproductive freedom in Minnesota law, a child tax credit that will reduce child poverty by 25%, free lunches and breakfasts for every kid. I could go on and on. Suffice it to say that generations of Minnesotans' lives will be better because of Melissa Hortman. And in that way, even though she's gone, she's all around us. She lives on in the full bellies of kindergartners who get to eat breakfast and lunch every single day. She lives on in the new moms who get to take time to spend with their new babies, and in the thousands upon thousands of trees she had planted all across the state. Because if you knew Melissa Hortman, you knew it always came back to trees. She was a big believer in planting trees. In her time as Speaker, she had a special priority for sneaking as much money as she could into as many budget bills as she could to plant trees. There are whole forests of trees in Minnesota because of Melissa Hortman. There's an old saying that a society grows great when old men and women plant trees knowing that they'll never get to sit under the shade. Our society still has a lot of work to do, but Melissa Hortman was great. Thank you very much.
Folks, at this time, I would like to invite Governor Walz, Senator Klobuchar, and Attorney General Keith Ellison back on the stage to just join me in a very truly special moment for me and our DFL and larger Democratic family. Zach, please. Yep. Democratic National Committee, I want you to join us in welcoming to the stage an incredible, resilient man, a man who we've all prayed for and prayed with in these last few months. You know, Senator Hoffman, of course, his wife Yvette, his daughter Hope, survived the assassination attempt. He's still recovering. I will tell you, John and I share a lot in common. One thing is that we both came up with Paul Wellstone. And he's never forgotten those same words, of course, that Paul has embodied in me and so many in this room, that we all do better when we all do better, right? John is an amazing man, and it's my honor to bring up this stage to address the Democratic National Committee, my friend, Senator John Hoffman.
Thank you. Last night I debated with my wife and daughter about how I would talk about Melissa Hortman. And she used the Effenheimer word many times. And so there was this debate in our house about I should just say LFG, LFG. Dude, you just gave me permission to say that. So good morning. It's an honor to be here with all of you today in Minneapolis. I am Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman. And you know what? Welcome to the North Star State, folks. You know, I'd like to say a few words about where we find ourselves, not only here in Minnesota, but across the country, as we work to reclaim what it means to be not only Democrats, but public officials who engage in public life at this critical juncture in America. I want to start off by thanking DNC Chair Ken Martin. You know, Ken, you've been instrumental in the successes we've had in Minnesota for 2 decades. 2 decades. And thank you for all that and for bringing this meeting back to your home state of Minneapolis, home state of Minnesota. We want to thank Governor Walz. Unbelievable. When he gets up here and he does his thing, I love that, right? And Senator Klobuchar, I'll still go down to Iowa for you anytime you want. Keith, you know what? Having our Attorney General that cares about human rights and civil rights is an amazing thing to have. And that gets to this, the challenge we do face. I want to speak about something that we all feel, is that creeping erosion of the public trust. That's not just in institutions, but that's in each other. And in this climate, we must recommit ourselves to governance over grievance, to service over self, and to action over anger. Terror in the night is not legislative reform. It's heinous. It's absolutely heinous. And so as we keep going through that piece of it, this is about courage. And this courage is to meet the fear with clarity, and the courage to put aside performance politics and focus on real solutions. It's about truth, not spin, not grievance, not the easy applause lines, but the honest work of governing. And it's about solidarity, recognizing that our work is bigger than any of us. When we govern with humility and humanity, we restore trust in our institutions and in each other. There's a personal story and a wake-up call. But what I just said is really how we preserve democracy, and this is how we lead. So what happened here in Minnesota in the early morning darkness of June 14th with the political assassinations of Melissa and Mark, and what happened to myself, my wife Yvette, and my daughter Hope was pure evil. It was a political attack on public servants and public service. And it was aimed squarely and slowly at our party. And it was a wake-up call. What is happening at a national level, the persistent dehumanizing narratives and conspiracy theories in public discourse are fueling the radicalization of individuals willing to engage in political violence against perceived opponents. Not okay. I'm still slowly recovering from my gunshot wounds, 9 of them. If you want to see the pattern on my body, it's the same pattern that's in my red door that I no longer have. Although I do still have a long way to go. And what my daughter has endured on top of all this trauma, with publications international objectifying her based on disability, with narratives of the night that aren't even true, that's ableist and that's shameful. And I wish the media would stop leading the headlines with that. Thank you. Thank you. But the last 2 painful months have given me perspective and the determination that the evil and violence on June 14th cannot and will not win. Our nation did cross a threshold on that night. And this horrific experience, what I've heard in a resounding voice from people all across our country and across the political spectrum is this. It isn't about politics anymore. It must be about right and wrong, right? We've all witnessed when leaders use the immense power entrusted to them, not for the common good, but to settle personal scores, to protect themselves and push selfish policies and pit neighbor against neighbor. That's wrong, and we must call it out. Returning to the core values. I want to talk about 3 core values. I was going to try to hold this hand up, but it's hard to do when I got a rod in my finger. 3 core values, right? I'm not a political strategist, and neither do I have any of the answers. But there are some democratic values that we need to return to reclaim as a party, to get our country back on course. And it won't happen overnight, but we must start and continue on that journey today. That's why meetings like this are so important. First, we need courage, right? Amen. Second, we need truth, right? Third, we need to engage with Americans. What I'm saying about that is we really need to listen to them. And then we need to act on their behalf. I heard from many people across this country since June 14th. And Americans across the political spectrum are thirsting for those things once again. I'm going to give you some examples of that leadership. First, courage. In 1948, a courageous young Minneapolis mayor named Hubert H. Humphrey stirred the Democratic National Convention in the nation when he challenged our own party to step away from states' rights. Remember that was being used for? Segregation of the South. Humphrey said, the time has arrived in America for the Democratic Party to get out of the shadow of states' rights and to walk forthrightly into the bright sunshine of human rights. How about that? Let's reclaim that courage. Let's continue to emphatically point out that when today's politics are warped into selfish agendas that harm families, strip communities of opportunity, and ignore the Constitution that it's meant to protect us. The second one is truth. Another Minnesotan, Walter Mondale, went from the U.S. Senate to become Vice President of the United States. And when he left that role, he reflected on his service and he said, we told the truth, we obeyed the law, and we kept the peace. Imagine that. That's the kind of leadership Americans are hungry for again. And instead, we too often see leaders bending the truth for personal gain and inviting crisis or spreading falsehoods that divide. That path only leads to mistrust and instability. We got to continue to tell the truth to the American people about those selfish policies written to benefit the powerful few. And in this country, right, and in Minnesota and every state, we feel the weight of those choices that enrich the wealthiest by hollowing out our health care, our education, and our future of working families. Not okay. So here's what we need to do. The third thing is solidarity. Paul Wellstone, my friend, his son and I have still to this day, we're the same age, go figure that one, used every waking breath he had to energetically fight for all people. And he used to challenge the unchecked power wielding by the wealthy and large corporations. He galvanized Minnesotans with the motto, Ken, we all do better when we all do better. We use that all the time. People believed him. Right? More importantly, they believed he was on their side. That's huge, right? I continue to hear that from Americans, that they don't believe we're on their side anymore. And we need to be, right? We need to organize as Wellstone did and keep fighting so that we all do better. And we need to make sure people know we're with them. Not with the selfish interests that hoard resources, not with politicians who weaponize power, but with the people who keep this country moving forward every single day. All right, I want to close by saying this. What happened in the dark of night on June 14th to the Hortmans and to me and my family is that wake-up call to Democrats all over. We must call Americans to action in ways that don't incite intimidation and political violence, right? Having our own homes violated by pure evil cannot be the new normal. Right? Amen? I believe all Americans and Minnesotans want to talk to each other again without being demeaned and without the threat of violence. And here's how simple it is. Recently, a garage door repairman came to fix our door. And he realized who my wife is and what she's been through. He burst into tears and he asked Yvette, can I give you a hug? And she said yes. That guy, somebody from all paths of life and all political beliefs, that pause to rethink what we have become. They're telling us enough is enough. This doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but it does mean we will have to begin to see the humanity in each other. As Humphrey, Mondale, and Wellstone, and every person in this room does, right? We as Democrats, as Americans, as people with humanity, have to reclaim that. Will you help us reclaim that, people? The tragic loss. The tragic loss of my colleague, my friend, and my political kid's sister, Melissa Hortman, has left an empty space in all of us. She was the most consequential speaker in Minnesota history. Now she's gone. It's our job to fill that space by upholding her legacy and the values she and her husband Mark held dear. Values we hold dear. So thank you. Thank you for being here today and for allowing me to speak to you today. I hope that the decisions that we all make will help move our party and our country forward and into a better future for everyone. And as Melissa would say, let's fucking go.
Okay. It is, I want to thank Representative Stevenson and, of course, Senator Hoffman for those stirring words. It's now time for us to move on with our business today. The first is the election of our at-large members of the DNC, as well as the at-large members of the Executive Committee. I first want to take a moment to thank the chairs of the AAPI, the Black, the Disability, Hispanic, LGBTQ, Native American, Women's, and Regional Caucuses, as well as the Youth Council, for all the work that they put in to make the process of nominating members through their caucuses to this slate of at-large nominees. Democracy is never simple, and I appreciate our caucus and Youth Council leaders and members for working with us to make this as seamless a process as possible. I know new things are tough sometimes in organizations like this. Change is always hard to understand and accept. But I want to appreciate what we're trying to do by changing, actually taking power away from the chair and giving it to our caucuses and councils. It's the first time in the history of this party that we're doing this. And it's going to make sure we have more diverse voices, new voices, other people participating. That's the way it should be, folks. Look, I've said this, just because something has always been done one way does not mean it's the right way. Actions like this, as I said, are steps towards a more representative DNC, and I couldn't have done it without all of you. Our caucuses and councils especially, I want to thank you. And so at this time, I would accept a motion to suspend the rules and adopt the proposed slate of at-large members of the DNC and at-large executive committee members by acclamation. It's been moved. Is there a second? The motion has been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Please welcome our new at-large members of the Democratic National Committee. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. Now, before we move on to the standing committee appointments, let's take a moment to thank all of the outgoing at-large members of the DNC, to thank them for their service to this institution, and I'm grateful for your leadership. The next piece of business is the ratification of standing committee members of the DNC. Our standing committee members do such important, challenging, and oftentimes thankless work. I want to thank all the members on the slate for their willingness to serve. In advance, I really want to thank you because it's going to be a lot of work. The slate of standing committee members before you was developed in consultation with every single member through the elections held in the caucuses and youth council. I want to thank you all for your participation in the first of its kind process. At this time, I would accept a motion to suspend the rules and ratify the standing committee members of the Democratic National Committee by acclamation. It's been moved. Is there a second? It is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations to our new standing committee members. I also want to thank our outgoing standing committee members for all of their tireless work over the past few years on these committees. We've got a couple more pieces of business here. I'd now like to welcome to the stage, I think she's here, right? Okay, great. We're going to wait just a second here. I believe she's in the room, hopefully. Give me a moment here. Let's see, we'll give it just a minute, and if she doesn't come, we'll go on to our next piece of business. Well, bad joke? Dad jokes, I don't wow. Get myself in trouble. Hey, Sean.
So Governor Walz mentioned that we are seeing federal troops taking over the streets of Washington, D.C., and that's coming to other cities next. Exactly 2 weeks ago today, President Trump ordered the National Guard to take over the streets of D.C. And since then, we and millions of Americans across the country have been watching as armed guards and tanks are rolling down the streets of D.C. And let me see where my presentation is. Hang on one second. There you go. So the Washington Post last week asked D.C. residents, what do you think of President Trump's actions? Do you think they're legitimate? Do you think they will actually make D.C. safer? Because after all, President Trump's stated purpose is crime is out of control in D.C. We need to make America safe again. We're starting with the capital nation. And here's what D.C. residents said. They said, I'm worried about crime. My safety does matter to me. And yet, overwhelmingly, 8 out of 10 D.C. residents said Trump's actions will not make us safer. I see some nods, and that is actually how Americans across this country feel, that this is a political power grab. It is not about safety. And you know what the Trump administration's response to that is? I don't care, because it's not about safety for them. It is about power, and it's about grabbing power however they can. And this is a vulnerability. This tough on crime rhetoric and actions, which historically I think Democrats have seen as a win for Republicans, it is actually a liability right now. Democrats have an opportunity to call this out for what it is. And yet we're at a moment where this is the standard response that we're seeing from at least some Democrats. This is a distraction from the Epstein files. This is not about crime, because crime is actually at a 30-year low. You want to talk about who's really soft on crime? Look at him pardoning the J6 defendants. This is a manufactured crisis. Look, these are all true statements, but what it misses is for Democrats to go on the offense and say, we are about safety, we are about accountability, we are about justice. And so, here's what Democrats should be doing, is acknowledging everybody wants to be safe. There's a universal value that we all care about, which is safety. The second thing that Democrats should be doing is go on the offense and call out how Trump's actions, the cuts to Medicaid, to food assistance, to mental health and treatment, are actually endangering the well-being and safety of our young people, our families, our neighborhoods. And third, talk about what Democratic investments have done to bring down crime so it's at a 30-year low. Show, don't tell. And look, this is a long-standing challenge for Democrats because crime has always felt like that issue where the opposition has the advantage and at best we get in, we get out, right? And I'm seeing some nods. You know what I'm talking about, and I say this out of love. Like Senator Klobuchar, I am not the we suck party either, I promise. And what we've seen in the last 6 months is that Trump's actions are unpopular with the American public. This is a poll from last month, and on things like the economy and inflation, Democrats have an advantage. Voters trust Democrats over Republicans on that issue that was Trump's signature issue last year. Even on immigration, the thing that felt like the Achilles heel for Democrats last year, now you can see Democrats are up in voter trust. But what's the one issue that still lags? It's crime. It's crime. Because everybody wants to be safe. And what we have seen from our multiple rounds of polling and message testing and studying this issue and working on races is that voters are really clear what Republicans are about when it comes to this issue. Tough on crime, law and order. And when we ask, what do you think Democrats stand for? They say, I don't know. I don't know. What's their brand? Do they care about this issue? And the answer is Democrats do. They do. And there's an opportunity right now with this political liability, this unconstitutional takeover of our cities for Democrats to own safety, to say we're serious about safety. And look, like I said, this is an age-old problem, and there's an opportunity for a new solution. So Trump is not about safety. This is a political power grab, and he will do it however he can, whether that's at the ballot box or taking over our cities. And so back in 2020, after the protests, the summer of George Floyd, after Americans watched people killed at the hands of the police and said, we want better, we want to support the police, but we also want accountability when they abuse their power or break the law. You can see Republicans spent about $100 million on ads attacking Democrats on defund, being soft on crime. Didn't pay off overall. Trump didn't win that year. But they saw this tough on crime play as a winning play in the overall authoritarian playbook. And back in 2022, the midterm cycle, they leaned in. They spent $250 million attacking Democrats for being soft on crime. Again, didn't win overall, but it did win in a place like New York, where Democrats lost the congressional House seats because they were vulnerable in attacks about crime. 2024, we saw the GOP spend over $1 billion on migrant crime, soft on crime attacks. And we all know what the results are. And look, when Democrats respond, it's often to say, I too am tough on crime, right? Like, let's actually try and use their language and use it against them. And the problem with that is that it actually just reinforces the Republicans' tough on crime, law and order brand. And so this is from last year, where in May 2024, we asked, who do you hear more from on the issue of crime? And you can see there was about a 15 percentage point gap between Republicans and Democrats. And when Democrats leaned hard into saying, no, I will get tough on the border, I will get tough on crime, that gap actually increased in favor of Republicans because, again, the message just reinforced the Republican brand. It didn't build a brand for Democrats. And we are at a moment of incredible opportunity for Democrats to take the upper hand on this issue because the American public does not like what Trump is doing, and they see through this pretext of crime for a political power grab. So, how do you do it? What should be the response when it comes to the federal takeover of D.C. and, as we see, Chicago, Baltimore, Oakland, they're all coming too? It's to start with the universal value of safety. We all deserve to be safe. Not about tough on crime scare tactics. I'm here to be serious about safety. Second is go on the attack, go on the offense, and call out Trump's actions of cutting Medicaid, food assistance, mental health care, treatment, all those things as endangering the safety and well-being of our communities. And third, talk about what Democrats have done to invest in community violence intervention, to make sure we have better, more accountable policing, to make sure we address the drivers of crime. And that's what's behind making our communities safe. There's such an opportunity there for the taking. And some Democrats are doing an incredible job on it. Uh-oh. Well, if this was working, it would have Mayor Michelle Wu from Boston, yes,
protect our residents.
who will send this around later.
While you are cutting health care and food assistance for our families, Boston has launched new coalitions to connect residents to fresh food, stable housing, and job training to build healthy, long lives. While you attempt to unlawfully cancel grants for our schools and roads, we funded 10,000 paid summer jobs for our young people, opened 1,000 new seats in free, high-quality early education classrooms for our littlest learners, fixed more than 27,000 potholes, and repaved more than 80 miles of city streets. While you deploy military personnel to occupy American streets, we are building community safety.
I didn't have to do it for her because you can hear for herself, right? Owning safety, talking about the liability that Trump is creating, safety in our communities, and owning being serious about safety. Looking for the rest of my PowerPoint. So there's a huge opportunity here. And I want to share 5 takeaways from our research. Let me see if it comes back up, but if not, I will just keep talking. There are 5 takeaways from our research that I really want folks to see, and we will share these slides after. The first takeaway is when we ask the American public, do you want to get tough on crime? You can see exactly, we're not sugarcoating what that is. We are saying, is it to have longer sentences for people who break the law, tougher bail laws, and more resources and funding for police? Or is it getting serious about safety, where we invest in fully funding the things that improve people's quality of life, like good schools, housing, job opportunities, access to treatment, and getting illegal guns off the street? You can see 60% of American voters say, I'd choose serious about safety over tough on crime. There is a conventional political wisdom about crime, and it's that if voters are concerned about it, they want tough policies. That's actually not true. They want to know that you're going to address the underlying drivers that make us safe or less safe. And look, we all know the crosstabs matter, right? And you can see in the crosstabs every single voting block, from young to old voters, black voters, AAPI voters, Latino voters, even independent voters, favor a serious about safety approach over going tough on crime. Take note of that data because it really does defy conventional political wisdom on this hard issue. The second takeaway is that there is an opportunity right now for Democrats, and it's to lean into the things that improve people's quality of life. Now, you can link affordability, which is the #1 issue voters care about right now, to safety. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but you can see when we put a typical Republican message of it's tax and spend Democrats who have raised the national debt, people don't want handouts, they want to show that they can work hard, right? That typical message, you put that up against a message which is a safe, affordable existence is one we all deserve, and we will invest in the very things that give us opportunity, that improve our quality of life, that address our mental health and other needs. 55% of voters pick that over the GOP tax and spend, people want to pull their socks up and do it their own kind of message. So we are winning on this. We just need to be louder. And again, the crosstabs matter, and here's what's so startling about this, is every single voter group that stayed home or moved to the right last year, young voters, Black voters, AIPI voters, Latino voters, independent voters, they all strongly favor a message that links a safe, affordable life is something we all deserve and puts safety and affordability together. This is an opportunity for Democrats. And go on the attack about Trump's cuts, because you can see for each and everything from too much enforcement of immigration to cutting health care to cutting services for victims and for domestic violence and for gun violence prevention, American voters think that makes us less safe. Go on the offense. Trump is actually very vulnerable. We need to own that. So another takeaway here is that, I can't actually read my slides, but the takeaway, can somebody actually tell me? Thank you. I was like, I had this memorized, and then I'm like, what's the third one? Third one is, look, we often go to the crime stats, and they're really good for us right now. Crime is at a remarkable low across the country. Every single city or place that you live in, crime has likely gone down, at least by some important measures. But if you only talk about the stats, you actually miss being able to tell a story about how and why we work to make communities safer. And so there are mayors who are doing this really well. And one to look at is Mayor Justin Bibb in Cleveland, who said, yes, crime is coming down, but don't let Trump take credit for it. It's going down in spite of him and because of Democratic leadership like mine. That is the phrase you want to use. Don't be afraid of the crime debate. Lean all the way in. Call out what Trump is doing and say, the reason crime is going down, our communities are becoming safer, is because of us. And you can see, you want to talk about the crime issues voters care about. Where does Trump go? Migrant crime, carjackings, the really lurid, awful stuff that is a crazy, crazy visual. Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans. And then go to the policy proposals that we think work. And it is things like making sure public safety, not wealth, determine who stays in jail or gets released. You hear Trump attacking cashless bail. Just this morning, he signed an executive order. This should be our response. They want money and privilege and to give a handout to the bail bondsman, while we want to make sure safety, not wealth, determines who stays in jail and who goes home to their families. That's the message you want to lead with when that executive order gets signed and hits the news. Likewise, increasing access to mental health care, building trust between police and the community, getting illegal guns off the street. Those are the policy proposals that Americans think will help reduce crime the most. The ones that don't win majority support, putting more police officers on the street, having longer prison sentences for people who commit violent crimes. And let me actually get to policing. I'll get there in a second, because I bet some of you are like, I don't know about this. This feels a little nervous, right? So we'll talk about it. Those soft on crime attacks are gonna come whether or not you actually are moderate or you are progressive. Wherever you sit on the spectrum, you're gonna be attacked for being soft on crime, right? And what you want to do is take on the real solutions that make communities safer and call out the scare tactics, even on the toughest issues. So let's talk about policing. We've asked folks, even if none of these are exactly right, which statement do you support most when it comes to policing? And it's support the police who do difficult jobs, put their lives on the line for us, and hold them accountable if they use excessive force or abuse their power. And help them by taking the burden off of them to solve every social problem so that they can focus on serious crime. It is not actually just more money for police or more funding for police. Time and time again, we have seen the right messages. We can support them. We can help them focus on serious crime. We can take the burden off. And we want better, more accountable policing. The defund attack comes. Here's how you respond. You call out the scare tactics. I'm not about scare tactics or slogans. I'm not afraid to have an honest conversation. We keep expecting police to solve every social problem. No one profession can do that. We're spending too much and putting too much burden on them. It's time to try out some promising new solutions to lift the burden. It's time for support and change, not blame. That beats out the defund attack by 16 percentage points, including with independent and soft Republican voters. So this works. And, you know, Trump has made a big deal out of sort of like things being out of control, disorder, homelessness in DC and other cities. In fact, here's the message that the American public agrees with when it comes to dealing with homelessness, open-air drug use. It's to say, these issues are best addressed by my local government, funding services like housing, mental health care, and drug treatment to help people recover and get back on their feet. Police should be involved where necessary for public safety, but shouldn't be the primary response. How sensible, right? The American public understands that if they hear that message. And then finally, why should you care? How will this help Democrats win? Like I said, the GOP spent over $1 billion in 2024 attacking Democrats for being soft on crime. You better be ready that they're going to do it in 2026, and they are doing it right now in New Jersey and Virginia. They've already spent millions attacking Abigail Spanberger, who is a law enforcement professional herself in her previous career. They're calling her soft on crime. They will call anybody soft on crime. And yet there's 15 to 20% of the American electorate who is a safety and justice voter. What does that mean? It means crime is a really important issue to their vote choice. And if you give them an option between being tough on crime or serious about safety, they choose being serious about safety. And when our races are won and lost in the margins, 50 to 20% of voters is a remarkable opportunity. And so here's who's done it, because I know I'm giving you a lot of data, and sometimes it can be like, well, that's data. That's the test tube of, lab results. What about in real life? And just last year, we saw Congresswoman Summer Lee, who was attacked for defund, being soft on crime, beat a tough on crime challenger in her primary. Senator Tammy Baldwin won an incredibly hard race in Wisconsin, where for Wisconsin voters, drug addiction, opioids, fentanyl was the top crime concern. And she didn't go tough on crime. She didn't start talking about the border and cracking down on the border. She talked about access to treatment, fentanyl, test strips, naloxone, keeping our families alive. And that resonated with voters. Likewise, Mayor Brandon Scott, mayor of Baltimore, under threat from an amazing, amazing mayor. I see some Maryland folks. You know exactly what he's doing. He's going out and talking about what I'm working on to make communities safe. And in each of these candidates, these leaders, and many others across the country, they won voters who are independent. They say they're not really strongly for any party. They won voters who are less likely to have finished college. They won voters of color. They won voters who don't regularly seek out news about politics. They won the very voters that Democrats represent but have yet somehow lost their trust. This is such an opportunity moving forward. And so, how do you do it? How do you pull this together? I'm going to give you a 30-second soundbite so you can hear it for yourselves.
Keeping you and your family safe. Nothing's more important. We all deserve leaders who are serious about safety. Democrats work to prevent crime before it happens, not just react after, with real solutions to stop the violence and respond to crises. Promoting gun safety, treating addiction, and breaking the cycle of crime. Sending a trained specialist to people in mental health crises. Supporting the police to solve serious crime. Safety, accountability, and justice, because Democrats are serious about safety and solutions.
30 seconds. You're making your case. You're going on the offense. This is an issue we can and must win. Thank you so much. I'm around, would love to share these slides, have more conversations with you all. Thank you for the great work you do.
Okay, we are nearing the end of our general session here. I want to bring up DNC Secretary Jason Ray for some quick announcements.
We know that folks are excited and ready for our council and caucus meetings today. Because we're running a little over, we're adjusting the schedule and are going to push all of the start times back 30 minutes. So the councils that were supposed to begin at noon will start at 12:30. We'll have an updated agenda out to folks shortly. But we've got one last speaker, so we just want to make sure everyone gets to participate here in the general session.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Our last speaker for today's general session is a great friend, someone who served in the U.S. Congress so admirably before returning home to her home city of Oakland, California, to serve as the mayor of that great city. Mayor Lee has been hard at work leading a beautiful city of artists, of organizers, of entrepreneurs, working families, and visionaries, all while standing up to threats from that orange bastard in the White House, Donald Trump. I'm so proud of Barbara Lee. I'm so proud of her leadership. I'm so proud that she's one of those fighters in the Democratic Party who's not going to cower from threats from the White House. She's leading an incredible city. Please welcome the mayor of Oakland, California, my friend Barbara Lee.
Well, good afternoon, Democrats. First, let me thank all of my DNC members. I want to thank our bold chair, Ken, for your tremendous leadership. Also to our mayor here in Minneapolis, Governor Tim Walz, Senator A.B. Klobuchar, Chris Murphy, also Betty McCollum, Ilhan Omar, so many friends here, our Attorney General Keith Ellison, so many leaders in this beautiful state. I just want to take a moment to first bring you greetings from Oakland, California. Oakland is in the house. Now, Oakland is a community that fights for democracy every day. And it's one that I'm honored to represent as I approach my first 100 days as mayor. And I just happen to be Oakland's first Black woman mayor. Now, y'all know the signs of authoritarianism cannot be ignored. And so I want to just take a minute to thank California Democrats, led by Governor Newsom. All right, and I want to thank Texas Democrats for standing strong. I was born in Texas, proud California. Together, we are leading the fight to protect our democracy. Now, Donald Trump, he trashed Oakland. He lied about us. But Oakland is not afraid. We embrace all residents, including our immigrant communities. Our police do not cooperate with ICE. We don't. Oaklanders face challenges head on. Now, in my first 100 days of action, we've moved with urgency. And while we do not sweep our realities under the rug, we are making progress. I was listening to Ishna and her brilliant presentation. Let me just tell you what's happening in Oakland. Violent crime is down 29%, right? Homicides are down 21%. 21%. Vehicle thefts are down 45%. And yes, we have more work to do. People must be safe and they must feel safe. And safety and justice must go hand in hand. Now, our police, we work with our Department of Violence Prevention and Ceasefire, our young people, our nonprofits, our clergy, our violence preventers and interrupters. Donald Trump is just downright wrong about Oakland, like he's wrong about all the other cities that he trashed. Now, the same urgency that drives our work on homelessness and housing does drive our work on public safety. Now, in just 100 days, we secured millions in funding to get people housed and to expand services. We've done that in less than 100 days, actually. We also see the scar of trash and illegal dumping. But we don't turn away, and we don't look away. We roll up our sleeves, and in 100 days, with city staff and volunteers, we remove nearly 30 tons of waste. Mind you, 30 tons of waste with our Keep Oakland Clean initiative. Our young people are helping us engage with keeping our city clean. That's what progress looks like. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Oakland. Thank you, Ken, because we're artists and small business owners. And yes, we're the number one food city in America, in case you didn't know. We're home to the 8th busiest port. We are music legends like Sheila E. and Tower of Power, filmmakers like Ryan Coogler, and we speak more than 125 languages. 125 languages. Oakland is the birthplace of the Black Panther Party, right? And the anti-war movement, right? We are proud of our labor unions. We're a labor union town. And we are building the future through our green economy. We are resilient, we're diverse, and we're unstoppable. So visit Oakland and you will see, okay? I really want you to come. Democrats, let me just say, you know, I've been part of this party for a long time. We must win. We must win. We must win for working families, for low-income families, for the poor, for poor families, for our youth, for our elders, the unsheltered, those who are struggling to pay for groceries, housing, health care, education, and yes, those under attack by Trump. And yes, we have to fight for our reproductive freedom and protect our trans community and our LGBTQ plus community, all who are under attack by Donald Trump. We must make life better for everyone in our country. Everyone. And so in Oakland, we empower people. It's power to the people. That's what our party must do. We listen, but we act. And that's what democracy, and you know where we are in terms of our democracy. That's what it demands right now in our history. And so let's fight together unapologetically and inclusively and boldly. We have to be bold now, and you've heard all of us talk about that, because we have to preserve and fight for the future that we all deserve, that everyone in this country deserves. Now, the first Black woman elected to the Congress, who my final legislation in Congress I honored with the Congressional Gold Medal, Shirley Chisholm from Brooklyn, New York. Shirley said, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines." Okay, Democrats? She said, "You make progress by implementing ideas." And so let's do this work. We have the ideas, but we know what to do. Let's lead with compassion. Let's lead with courage. And let's lead with boldness. We must win these elections. Because you know what? And I know you know that when we fight, what do? We win. When do we fight? What do? We win. And what are we going to do? We're going to organize and we're going to fight. And what are we going to do? We win. So all power to the people from Oakland, California. God bless.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Let's hear it for Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee. This concludes our general session meeting today. The caucus and council meetings that were slated for 12 o'clock will start in just a couple minutes, so please make your way to those caucus and council meetings. Thank you so much.